Oladayo didn't just leave her at the altar, he looked her in the eye, told 500 people she wasn't worth staying for, and walked out like she was nothing. The cathedral went silent. The cameras kept rolling. But here's what Oladayo didn't know. Someone in that front row had been watching him for months, and he was about to wish he never opened his mouth. If this story hits different, smash that like button right now and drop your country in the comments. I want to know where you're watching this unfold from. The cathedral hadn't stopped holding its breath when the footsteps started. Slow. Deliberate. Every single head turned. But Seijin wasn't looking at them. His eyes were locked on Jade, still standing at the altar in her white dress, tears drying on her face like war paint. Oladayo had already reached the door when Seijin stopped beside her and said it. Quiet, but the microphone caught every word. You rejected a queen. Then he reached into his jacket. The diamond he pulled out caught the light from the cathedral windows and threw it across every face in the room. He didn't ask. He didn't wait. He took Jade's hand, slid the ring on her finger, and turned to face Oladayo at the door. One look. That was all it took. This wasn't a wedding anymore. It was a coronation. The two men at the back of the cathedral didn't need to say a word. Everyone felt them. The shift in the room was instant. Shoulders tensing, eyes dropping, the kind of collective stillness that only happens when people suddenly realize they are in the presence of someone dangerous. Jade couldn't breathe. She didn't know this man. Didn't know his name. Didn't know why he was here. Didn't know why every single person in this room was looking at him like he owned the ground beneath their feet. All she knew was that he had just said something. Something that cut through every humiliating second of the last 10 minutes. And he had said it like he meant it. Like it was a fact. Oladayo's hand was still on the cathedral door. He hadn't left yet. He was watching now, frozen mid-step, his jaw tight. For the first time all morning, he didn't look confident. He looked caught. Seijin didn't turn around to face him. He kept his eyes on Jade, steady, patient, waiting. Like he already knew exactly how this was going to end, and he was simply giving her the time to catch up. Jade swallowed. Her fingers tightened around the bouquet she was still holding. The tears had stopped. Something else was rising now. Something quiet and hot. Something that had been buried under years of trying to be enough for a man who was never going to let her be. She looked at Seijin. He didn't flinch. And for the first time that morning, neither did she. Seijin moved first. His hand went into the inside pocket of his jacket, slow, deliberately, like he wanted every single person in that cathedral to see exactly what he was reaching for. The room held its breath. Even the crying boy in the third row had gone quiet. What Seijin pulled out made someone gasp. It wasn't just a ring. It was a statement. A single, flawless diamond. The kind of stone that didn't belong in a cathedral in broad daylight. The kind that belonged behind glass in a museum or locked in a vault somewhere. It caught the light coming through the stained glass windows and threw it back tenfold, sharp and blinding, like a small sun had appeared between Seijin's fingers. Jade stared at it. She had seen rings before. Oladayo had given her one, a delicate, modest band that she had worn for 11 months without ever once questioning whether she deserved it. This was something else entirely. This diamond was larger than anything she had ever seen outside of a television screen. It sat in a black velvet case that Seijin had already set aside, like the case was an afterthought, like the ring was the only thing in the room that mattered. Maybe it was. He held it between his thumb and forefinger, right in front of her, and said nothing. He didn't need to. The gesture was the message. Every camera in the room, and there were at least 6, was already pointed at them. Someone in the back row had their phone up. This moment was going to be everywhere by tonight. Seijin knew that. Jade could tell he knew that. She glanced toward the door. Oladayo was still there, one hand gripping the handle, his face drained of color. He looked like he wanted to say something. Wanted to step back in and take control of the narrative the way he always did. The way he had done for the entire time they had been together. But he didn't move. His eyes were fixed on the ring, and whatever he saw in Seijin's expression was enough to keep him exactly where he was. Seijin turned his attention back to Jade. He extended his hand, palm up, steady, unhurried, and waited. Not pushing. Not demanding, just offering. The bouquet slipped from Jade's fingers and hit the marble floor. The sound echoed through the cathedral like a full stop at the end of a sentence she hadn't known she was writing. She looked down at Sejun's open hand. Then she looked up at his face. His expression hadn't changed, calm, certain, completely unreadable. But his eyes were sharp, watching her, reading her. Jade breathed in. Then she placed her hand in his. Sejun didn't smile. He simply slid the ring onto her finger, firm, precise, final, and held her hand there for one beat longer than he needed to. The cathedral erupted. Oladayo moved first this time. Jade. His voice cracked through the chaos like a whip. He let go of the door handle and took 2 steps back into the cathedral, his hands raised like he was trying to calm a situation he had no control over. Jade. Wait. Let's talk about this. Come on, you don't even know this man. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Jade felt it land in her chest, not as pain this time, but as something sharper, something close to amusement. 11 months of, we'll figure it out later. 11 months of, just trust me. And now, the one time he actually wanted her to stay, it was because she was worth something to him again. He wasn't proud of her. He was using her. Sejun's hand was still resting against the small of her back. Light. Barely there. But steady. He hadn't said a word since the ring went on, and he didn't say one now. He simply turned his body slightly toward the aisle, an invitation, not a command, and began to walk. Jade walked with him. The aisle stretched out ahead of them, long and open, and every single person sitting in those pews watched them move down it. Some had their phones out. A woman in the 5th row was crying openly, one hand pressed to her chest. A man near the back was whispering frantically into someone's ear. The moment was already writing itself. The abandoned bride, the mysterious stranger, the ring that cost more than most people's homes. By morning, it would be everywhere. Jade, stop. Oladayo's footsteps were faster now, chasing his composure. The careful, polished composure he wore like a second skin was cracking. This is insane. You're making a scene. Everyone is watching. She didn't turn around. It wasn't stubbornness. It wasn't anger either. Not exactly. It was something quieter than both. It was the feeling of a door closing behind her, soft and clean, on a room she had spent too long trying to make feel like home. Sejun glanced at her once, just a flicker of his eyes, checking, making sure she was still with him. She was. They reached the cathedral doors. One of the men in black, the one from the back row, was already there, holding it open. The late afternoon light spilled in, golden and sharp, and for a second Jade was blinded by it. Behind her, Oladayo's voice came one last time, louder now, desperate. Jade, please. Sejun paused at the threshold. He didn't turn around either. He just spoke, low, even, and carrying the kind of weight that didn't need volume to land. She's done listening to you. Then he guided Jade through the door, and the cathedral closed behind them. The black SUV was exactly where it was supposed to be. Jade noticed it the moment they stepped out of the cathedral, long, sleek, and idling at the curb like it had been waiting for hours. Maybe it had. The driver didn't turn his head when Sejun opened the back door. Didn't acknowledge them at all. He simply waited, hands on the wheel, eyes forward, like this was the most ordinary thing in the world. Sejun gestured toward the open door. Jade climbed in without a word. The interior was dark leather and quiet, the kind of quiet that came from expensive engineering. No road noise, no hum, nothing. Just the faint hum of climate control and the distant city disappearing behind tinted glass. Jade looked down at her hands in her lap. The ring caught the dim interior light and threw it back at her, brilliant and heavy on her finger. She still hadn't touched it, hadn't turned it, hadn't done anything except stare at it like it might disappear if she moved too fast. Sejun sat beside her but left a gap between them. He pulled out his phone, typed something short, and put it away. That was all. No conversation, no explanation. The silence between them wasn't awkward, it was careful. Like they were both holding something fragile, and neither wanted to be the one to drop it. The drive took 40 minutes. Jade watched the city change outside the window. The streets got wider, the buildings got taller, then shorter, then disappeared altogether, replaced by high walls and tall hedges, and the kind of greenery that only existed where money could buy it. The SUV turned through a set of iron gates that opened without anyone pressing a button and rolled up a driveway long enough to be its own road. Then the house appeared. Jade's breath caught, quiet enough that she hoped Sejin didn't hear it, but she wasn't sure. It wasn't a house. It was an estate. 3 stories of dark stone and glass, stretching wide across a manicured lawn that looked like it had been maintained by people who got paid specifically to make grass look like that. The architecture was sharp, modern, deliberate. All clean lines and massive windows that reflected the sky like mirrors. There were no other cars in sight, no gardeners, no one at all. Just the building, and the silence around it, and the weight of how much everything she was looking at must be worth. Sejin was already opening his door when Jade finally spoke. "How big is this place?" He paused, looked at her. The corner of his mouth moved, not quite a smile, but close. "Big enough," he said. He stepped out. Jade followed, the gravel crunching beneath her heels. The white wedding shoes she was still wearing, ridiculous now against all of this. She looked down at them, then back up at the house and felt the first real wave of it hit her. She had no idea what she had just walked into. The study was the quietest room Jade had seen since she left the cathedral. Sejin poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal pitcher on the desk and handed her one, without asking. She took it. Her hands were still shaking, not from cold but from the kind of tiredness that sits deep in your bones when your whole life cracks open in one afternoon. She wrapped both hands around the glass and held on. Sejin sat across from her and watched her for a moment. Not the way Oladayo used to watch her, checking, measuring, deciding if she was enough. This was different. This was patient, like he could wait all night if she needed him to. Jade took a sip. Then she looked at him. "Tell me the truth," she said. "Why did you do that back there? The ring, the whole thing, you don't even know me." Sejin didn't flinch. He just leaned forward, rested his elbows on his knees, and let out a slow breath, like he had been waiting for her to ask. "You're right. I don't know you," he said. "But I know him, better than you think." Jade's stomach tightened. Sejin kept his voice low, easy. The way someone talks when they want you to hear every word without having to raise their voice to get there. "Oladayo and I had a deal. 2 years ago, he needed something from me. Protection, money, I won't go into the details. And in return, he made promises. He broke every single one of them. Then he ran." Jade set the glass down, her throat had gone dry again. "He ran," she repeated. "He disappeared. New city, new phone, new life." Sejin tilted his head, just slightly. "And then, about 6 months ago, I started hearing his name again. Saw him at events, saw him in photos online, and every single time, every single photo, you were there, right next to him. Smiling." The room went very still. Jade didn't need him to explain the rest. She could feel it assembling itself in her mind. All those evenings out, all those dinners where Oladayo insisted they sit where people could see them. All the times he had squeezed her hand a little too tight when someone important walked in. She had thought he was proud of her. He wasn't proud of her. He was using her. "I was his cover," she whispered. Sejin nodded once. "Slow and honest, you were." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind that comes after someone finally says the thing you already suspected, but didn't want to be true. Jade stared at the glass in front of her. At the ring on her finger. At the way the light caught it and threw it back across the room like a promise. Sejin watched her absorb it. He didn't rush her, didn't fill the space with more words. He just waited. Oladayo's first move came at 6 a.m. the next morning. Jade found out the way most people find out about things now, through a screen. She was sitting in the kitchen of Sejin's estate, wearing a white robe that was softer than anything she had ever touched, when a woman in a sharp navy blazer walked in, set a tablet on the counter in front of her, and tapped it awake without a word. It was a news clip. A morning show. And there was Oladayo, sitting in a leather chair under studio lights, looking exactly the way he always looked when he wanted people to feel sorry for him. Shoulders slightly hunched, eyes a little glassy, voice just barely cracking at the edges. "I loved her," he was saying. "I still love her. What happened yesterday? That wasn't real. That man, whoever he is, he manipulated the situation. He manipulated her. And I just want people to know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And when Jade's ready to come home, I'll be waiting." Jade stared at the screen. She knew that voice. She knew exactly what it sounded like when it was real and exactly what it sounded like when it was performing. This was the second one. The practiced version. The one he used at dinner parties when someone asked about their relationship and he wanted to sound like the kind of man who would burn the world down for the woman he loved. He wasn't that man. He had never been that man. The woman in the blazer, whose name Jade would later learn was Mira, was watching her reaction carefully. Not with pity, with something closer to professional interest. "Sejan's already seen this," Mira said. Her tone was flat, efficient. "He's not worried." "Why not?" Jade asked, still looking at the screen. Mira almost smiled. Almost. "Because we have the cathedral footage, all of it. Every camera, every angle, including the part where he walked out first." She tapped the tablet and the clip disappeared. His story doesn't hold up and he knows it. By this afternoon, every outlet that ran his interview will have our side. Quietly, professionally, and Oladayo will realize very quickly that no one is going to believe him over what's already on camera. Jade turned to look at her. "And if he keeps trying?" Mira held her gaze for a beat. Something passed between them, an understanding that didn't need to be spoken out loud. The kind of thing that existed in Sejan's world and not anywhere Jade had lived before. "He won't," Mira said. Simply. Certainly. Men like Oladayo are only brave when no one is pushing back. Someone is pushing back now. She picked up the tablet, tucked it under her arm, and turned toward the door. She paused at the threshold, glanced back at Jade one last time. "Breakfast will be ready in 10 minutes. Eat something. You're going to need the energy." Then she was gone, and the kitchen was quiet again, and Jade sat there, turning the ring on her finger, and thinking about how fast the ground could shift under someone who thought they were standing on solid ground. The dress was black. Not the kind of black that disappears into the background. The kind that commands it. Floor length, fitted through the waist, with a slit up one side that stopped just above the knee. Jade stood in front of the mirror in the bedroom Sejan had given her and barely recognized the woman looking back. Mira had handled everything. The dress, the shoes, black heels, sharp and simple, the jewelry, a single gold chain around her neck. Nothing else. The ring on her finger did the rest. "You don't need to add anything to that," Mira had said, nodding at the diamond. "Let it do the talking." Sejan was waiting at the bottom of the staircase when Jade came down. He was in black too, a suit that fit him like it had been sewn onto his body. He looked up when he heard her footsteps and something crossed his face. Not a smile. Something quieter than that. Approval, maybe, or recognition. He offered his arm. Jade took it. The gala was being held in a rooftop venue in the city center. Glass walls, open sky, hundreds of people in expensive clothes pretending they weren't all watching the door. And they were. Because word had spread. It had been spreading all week, in fact, ever since the cathedral footage went viral, and every gossip column in the country had a new story to tell. The abandoned bride. The mystery man. The $5 million ring. Jade felt every single eye in the room turn when they walked in. She had expected it to feel terrible. The weight of all those stares, all that judgment. It was the same crowd, after all. The same kind of people who had sat in that cathedral and watched Oladayo walk away without saying a single word. The same people who would have posted about her humiliation by morning, turned her worst moment into content, and moved on without a second thought. But it didn't feel terrible. It felt like power. Sejan guided her through the room with the same calm, unhurried pace he used for everything. He didn't rush, didn't look around to gauge reactions. He just walked, and Jade walked beside him, and the crowd parted without being asked. People nodded. Some smiled. Careful, calculated smiles, the kind that said, "I see you and I want you to know that I see you." A woman near the bar, someone Jade vaguely recognized from one of Oladayo's old dinner parties, caught her eye and raised her champagne glass. A tiny gesture, almost nothing. But it was there. Jade lifted her chin and kept walking. Halfway across the room, Sejan leaned in close. His voice was low, meant only for her. "How does it feel?" Jade didn't look at him. She kept her eyes forward, on the glass walls and the city lights beyond them, on the room full of people who were watching her and couldn't look away. "Like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be," she said. "It happened on a Tuesday." Jade had been in Sejun's world for exactly 9 days. 9 days of quiet mornings, of learning the rhythm of the house, of watching Sejun move through his life like a man who had long since stopped being surprised by anything. 9 days of feeling, slowly, carefully, like maybe this was going to be okay. Then the car followed her. She noticed it first on the way back from the garden. A black sedan, parked just past the iron gates, engine running. She almost didn't think anything of it. Almost. But something about the way it sat there, too still, too deliberate, made her pause at the front door and look back. The car didn't move. It just waited. She told Sejun that evening, over dinner. She kept her voice steady, the way she had been learning to do around him, matching his calm with her own. He listened without interrupting. When she finished, he set his fork down and was quiet for a long moment. "How long was it there?" he asked. 20 minutes. Maybe more. He nodded. Just once. Then he pulled out his phone and typed something short, the same way he had done in the SUV that first night. Quick, quiet, like the message was already expected. Within the hour, Mira appeared at the door of the study. She sat down across from Sejun and spoke in a low voice, fast and precise, the way someone talks when the information matters more than the delivery. Jade was in the hallway. She wasn't meant to hear. But the house was quiet, and the door was open, and she heard enough. A name, one she didn't recognize, someone who had a reason to find Sejun, someone who had been looking. The realization settled into Jade's chest like a stone dropping into water, slow at first, then heavy, then impossible to ignore. This wasn't just Sejun's life. It was her life now too. And his life came with things that followed you. Things that waited outside iron gates in black sedans with the engine running. Things that didn't care about rings or galas or how many cameras had filmed you walking out of a cathedral like you owned the ground beneath your feet. They cared about proximity. And she was close. Later that night, Sejun found her sitting in the kitchen, the same spot where Mira had shown her the interview clip days ago. He didn't sit down right away. He stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her, and she could tell he was trying to figure out what to say. He didn't need to say much. "Are you scared?" he asked. Jade looked at the ring on her finger, turned it, slowly, in the low kitchen light. Then she looked up at him. "Yes," she said, honest, clean, no pretense. Sejun held her gaze, and for the first time since the cathedral, something in his expression cracked open, just a fraction, just enough for her to see that he understood exactly what he had asked her to carry. "Good," he said quietly. "That means you're paying attention." 3 weeks. That was how long it had taken. 3 weeks from the cathedral to this moment, standing in the hallway of Sejun's estate at midnight, phone in hand, staring at a message from Oladayo she hadn't asked for and didn't need. It was long, too long to quote here, but the gist of it was simple. He was sorry. He missed her. He wanted to talk. He wanted to explain. He wanted her to come back. Jade read it once. Then she read it again, slowly, the way you read something when you're not looking for new information, but checking to see if it still has the power to hurt you. It didn't. She put the phone down on the hall table and walked into the study. Sejun was there, the way he usually was at this hour. Sitting in the leather chair by the lamp, reading something on a tablet, sleeves rolled to his elbows. He looked up when she walked in, didn't say anything. Just watched her the way he always did, patient, waiting. Jade sat down in the chair across from him, the same chairs, the same room where he had told her the truth about Oladiah weeks ago. It felt like a lifetime. "He texted me," she said. Sejun's expression didn't change. "What did he say?" "Everything he should have said at the altar." She paused. Let the words sit there for a second. "And nothing I haven't already heard 100 times before." Sejun nodded. Slow. He set the tablet down and gave her his full attention, the way he did when something mattered. Not with urgency, with weight. "And?" he asked. One word. Clean and open, leaving the rest entirely up to her. Jade thought about it. Really thought about it. Not the way she used to, which was fast and anxious and desperate to find the right answer before someone decided she was too slow. She thought about it the way she had been learning to think, which was carefully. Honestly, without apologizing for taking the time. She thought about the cathedral, the white dress and the bouquet hitting the marble floor, the way the room had looked at her like she was something broken. She thought about the ring on her finger now. Heavy, warm, real. And the way it had changed how people looked at her overnight. She thought about the gala, and the black sedan at the gate, and Mira's sharp voice, and Sejun's quiet, steady presence beside her through all of it. She thought about who she had been 3 weeks ago. Then she thought about who she was right now. "I'm not going back," she said. Not angry, not sad, not performing for anyone, just a fact. The cleanest, truest fact she'd ever spoken out loud. Sejun held her gaze for a long moment. And then, for the first time since the cathedral, since any of this began, he smiled. Small, real. The kind that wasn't meant for cameras or rooms full of people. Just for her. "I know," he said. And the room was quiet, and the house was still. And Jade Thomas sat in the low lamplight and felt, for the first time in her life, like she had finally chosen herself.